Hello and welcome to the first ever TTTT here on Zwift Live in the Zwift Racing League. I'm Nathan Guerra. Dave Toll sat next to me, and this is going to be awesome. Last week we had points race. This week we've got team time trial. We're going to be swapping between points race, team time trial throughout the entirety of the season, and this is something me and Dave are pretty familiar with because we've been doing it every Thursday since last spring. So Dave, super excited. TTT, all the action about to come.
Yeah, Nathan, not since 1992 at the Barcelona Olympics has a team time trial held this much significance as we get ready for the second week of the Zwift Racing League. There are a lot of unknowns. It's going to be a fantastic day of racing as we're out here on a course used for the virtual Tour de France. This is R.G.V, Route Grand Vitesse. Boy, I can't wait to find out who's going to come out of the woodwork, Nathan. It's not just the top teams in this 8-race series.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a quick look before we jump into the team time trial. Let's, as well as the course, what happened last week and where things stand. Last week we were out on the big foothills course for 50 kilometers, 31.1 miles, and there were a lot of points up for grabs. Up front, it was Canyon Esports that was taking down the first king of the mountain there. Ollie Jones taking the 5 points over the line, getting an immediate lead of 6 points, 9 points back to, I believe it was P.O. Auto, and then it looked to be Ben Healy for Trinity Racing that was going to take it down, but out of nowhere, Spencer Sagerbrook for Team Turbo put them on the board, but that was going to be all for Team Turbo on the day as they headed on toward the Volcano KOM. Again, it was Ben Healy with the initial attacks, but it wasn't going to last. As again, Canyon Esports taking the chocolates over the line there with some more points, extending their lead out to 16 points there with P.O. Auto nipping at their heels, which is going to be a theme, I think, throughout this league. Now, Ollie Jones, initial attacks into the reverse KOM, heading to the finish line, but no, it wasn't going to be happening as the pack caught them. Immediately a counterattack from Ben Healy, but with the dropout, Healy, the most aggressive rider of the day, found himself off the back of the pack. With 1K to go, Ryan Larson from Stars to Pros Closet led things out, thinking maybe could set up the rest of his teammates, but wasn't going to happen as P.O. Auto ended up across the line first with Fogler for the scratch race. But it was all about the points on the day. And the reality of the points, it was after the first race, the most points were accumulated by Stars to Post Closet. So they ended up in first for the day with 20 points. Then Canyon Esports then ended up in second, taking 19 then for that second place. And P.O. Auto coming in for third. Team Swedish Zwifters followed up by Aero Evoke, presented by Insured. Then it's going to be Draft Legion of Los Angeles, and then Bolt Racing Team. 10th place is held by World Elite Zwifters. So that is what happened after week one for the men's side of things. Dave, it definitely was an amazing race out there for the points race, but now into the TTT, we've got a whole different ball game and a whole different course. Not a whole lot of KOMs out there to really worry about as far as a lot of climbing goes.
Yeah, no, it's not about elevation gain. It's not about distance. It's about intensity out here on the R.G.V course today. The women are going to be racing on the exact same course a little bit later today. We do have a split at 12 kilometers. That's going to be very interesting to see the top teams. Let's take a look at the course that we're going to be racing on today. You can see it goes by some infamous landmarks in the Tour de France, like Mont Saint-Michel there. But again, not a lot of up and down. There's one pinch point, though, Pont du Gard. There's going to be riders getting dropped out of their teams. They'll try to regroup and then bring it on home for 24.1K. Nathan, it's not going to be much more than half an hour of racing until this one is done and dusted. Only 107 meters of climbing along the way. Taking the time off of that third rider's wheel, and most of the teams starting with 5 on their squad, but not everyone, Nathan, and that'll be part of the storyline here today as well. It's not about having one strong rider dragging your team around the course. It's about working together, getting the most out of everybody, and leaving it all out on course today.
Yeah, and it's a good point about the course here about whether or not there's experience for the riders. The reality that R.G.V has only been used once before. France was only launched back during the virtual Tour de France in September. So, August, September. So, the reality of this course only being run one time, and it was the World Elite Zwifters that took it down with a time of 30:59. The last time we did see this in the WTRL TTT. Now, there's currently sitting in that 10th place. Not sure that that's going to come into play because it's up for grabs. We kind of have like this, the reality of really strong teams, but they're coming in with not a whole lot of experience in TTTs. A lot of these teams, it might be their first time or second or third go. They're just trying to figure out how to run a TTT. The reality also that some of these teams, are just being put together specifically for this. So I think there's a lot up for grabs. We were having a lot of conversations prior to this about what to think about who's going to win and how. Obviously, the strong teams that we've seen in the past, with Canyon, Sarsa Postcloset, Pio, et cetera. But I think we also got kind of a toss-up here. We're going to have to figure out as we go.
Well, let's take a look at some of the teams to look at. Pio Auto, if you go back through the WTRL, they're into their 78th week of consecutive team time trial racing, and this has been one of the standout squads without any doubt. Nathan, you mentioned World Elite Zwifters. This is their arch nemesis over the last, I would say, during the COVID lockdown period. Pio Auto took a bit of a break, but they've come back firing on all cylinders. And I'll be honest, Nathan, this is my team to beat here today, along with, and you mentioned it, World Elite Zwifters. So they were 10th on the points on the first day of racing, first week of racing for ZRL. Well, their experience, Nathan, is going to move them. I picked them on the Zwift World of Zwift show that I thought that this team, talking about World Elite Zwifters, was going to be the top squad. They're going to be up there. I expect them to be in the top 3. They could actually win. Experience is paramount on a day like today. Another team to look at, Nathan, is Canyon. No doubt about it, this is a strong squad, and they bring a lot of depth. As a matter of fact, the talent dispersed amongst this team very evenly, but you see Lionel Vujasin there, always a rider to watch. He's a strong anchor for this squad, along with Ollie Jones.
Yeah, and I think the reality of the actually 3 very strong, just tanks on this, riders that will just kind of set a high wattage and leave it there. Alex West, Philip Dininger, and then it's going to be Ali Jones. Those are kind of, I think, the 3 driving horses here. Gaylor Mueller as well as Vujasin, maybe a little bit more punchy, especially with Vujasin. I think Vujasin's going to be carrying them through a lot more of those little, there are a couple little undulations here. There's not a lot of climbing, but there are some sections where he's going to be pulling through and kind of making sure those speeds stay high for little punches. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Canyon Esports. But then we also have out there, obviously, SARS, the pros closet. They're going head-to-head with this team for points currently. 1 point separating them in the overall. Dan Fleeman, Holden Camus, Mike Cuming, which is a recent pickup, as you can actually see in the graphic there, without the jersey on. And so he just got drafted over to Team SARS, the pros closet. Ryan Larson, obviously very strong rider, mainly for his sprint, I would think, because he just got picked up for the world's team for the US of A. And then Gavin Dempster, the guy's got FTP all day long. Be on the watch out for this team. They are currently leading things. They are, in what could be claimed the leader's jersey. So be on the watch out for them to try and defend out there today and put everything on the line. They have won before in some big races over the spring and into the summer in this discipline specifically. So SARS Pros Closet, watch out for them, Dave. I think that they're the ones to beat out here. Pio Auto, they're going to be nipping at the heels, though, 10 points behind for the lead. Behind Canyon and SARS Pros Closet.
We don't have a tremendous number of data points to work with in the team time trial. One thing's for sure, that Sarah's the Pros Closet team has had success in various stage races that happen during the spring and summer. So they know the drill. Pio Auto clearly has done their homework. And Nathan, one team's going to come out of the woodwork on us today. There's no doubt about it. Maybe that's Legion of Los Angeles with Corey Lockwood. The Williams brothers, that's a strong team coming out of North America to watch in this worldwide battle royale. Team time trialing is back here. Esports in full effect. And Nathan, it's only a matter of moments until we've got the teams out on course. Again, let me hit some of the data points for you that we do know. 24.1 kilometers of racing. That's not a long time in the saddle. They're going to have this one paid quite quickly out there. Not a tremendous amount of climbing. It's going to come down to a coordinated effort. Having done your homework, as we've said, will be paramount on a day like today. The teams start with upwards of 5 riders, time taken off of your third rider, and I think we're going to jump right in with Skyline. This is an American team here, and I see Justin McQuarrie there. So looks like only 3 riders, Nathan, so they've got absolutely zero wiggle room. Justin McQuarrie is a type 1 diabetic, one of the great stories that we have in the Zwift community, and I love seeing this team making the jump up into the big leagues here. It is on like Donkey Kong, folks, as team time trialing is back and in full effect. So Nathan, here we go. First team out on course. A historic moment here for esports.
Yeah, Team Skyline. We'll see what kind of time they can bring in for the first 12-kilometer checkpoint. That's what we'll be watching out for as they're hammering away out on R.G.V. currently. Now, the other question is, too, as we've seen a lot of these teams jumping into TTT as a newer discipline to a lot of these riders out here, the reality of communication changes up so much. So often in scratch racing, you do see a situation where it just kind of gets a little more obvious about what to do and when. And so the reality of how riders can play a scratch race is totally different than you can with the TTT. Knowing when to go, how much power to put on the front, whether or not you're dropping other riders. We jump into race, R3R here, no pins R3R with Gleason on the back there. Here's the live shots there for just a moment of the riders now. But, I think communication, speaking of, seeing the live riders right there for just a moment, the reality that those riders all have to know exactly when, how, and why they are taking a pole completely changes the teamwork versus just covering moves in a scratch race, Dave.
Absolutely, Nathan, and we'll talk about, there's tactic and there's strategy, and both are going to come into play today. So Scott Gleason, Neil Richards, Chris Smart, Klaus Van Alderneld, and Zach Herner making up the team that you're looking at right now. You're always going to want a Belgian on your team, I think, these days, as we take a look now at a team that's working very well together. So, Nathan, there's really 2 basic techniques that you can use. You can either go single file, which takes a lot of finesse, or kind of do it blob style, as I've heard the Australians calling this, and I agree with that. Now, so you can kind of go back and forth. This would make in America, quite a Thanksgiving dinner conversation, right? Because people are going to have strong opinions about how the best way to team time trial is, and we're really going to have to let it be said that the proof will be in the pudding. As a 5-rider team working well together, Nathan, this looks pretty solid to me, as again, this is one of the premier teams in esports, no doubt about it. The team formerly known as World Bicycle Relief, R3R here, doing a great job, and that again is going to be Scott Gleason up on the front, taking a monster pull right now. You get a good look at all of the riders, and again, how international this sport is as well.
Yeah, and as you can see the numbers at the bottom here, the tactic here currently being used by this team, Gleason pushing 595, 600 watts at the front there. Only for about 30 seconds, though, I believe. A little bit of punches from him now. Now you have other riders coming on through as they carry speed through. A lot of riders focus, and newer riders, newer community members to the TTT, they focus so much on their watts per kilogram a lot of times that they can miss out on the reality is speed is still king. And so a lot of these riders, a lot of these TTT teams that really know what they're doing, keep an eye on their speed, carrying their speed through the entire time. And you'll watch how these riders who know what they're doing here will be looking to carry speed through continually, never slowing down toward the front, because if you slow down your avatar too much on the front there, as the rest of the group is holding on, just like in real life, if you sit on a wheel of a rider who's slowing down, you brake check. Well, in game, automatic brake checks almost happen. And so you have to come through. You have to make sure that speed's carried through. So a lot of times you'll see what looks like almost too much effort if you didn't know that the rider was trying to make sure that speed stayed high. So it's always interesting to see how different it is as we get this new Zwift craft coming out in this world of Zwift. You have these riders learning how this TTT is gamed, very different than from in real life. A lot of times you have one rider on the front just solo pulling for long periods of time, and then maybe another rider pulling through with a focus on just coming through in real life and not this idea of constant speed. So now we do have Sater on the front here, and a whole nother team. It looks like we're in with, I believe this is going to be the, looking through here, Holtham hammering away with KRT.
Yeah, Nathan, one of the hardest things in cycling to do is the maneuver of coming off of the front after you've taken a big pull. We're watching it happen right now with Cedar. And watch this. Now, it is so hard to get that wheel, and he's having a little bit of trouble here. That is exactly what I was trying to highlight, Nathan, how hard it is for the riders who are making massive watts on the front to be able to rejoin. And so he just went into full sprint mode there for 10 seconds. If we could have seen those numbers, he was probably making close to, I'm going to say 700 watts for about 10 seconds there, because that's the biggest danger you have. It's much like riding in a breakaway, where if you take too hard, too long of a pull, what will happen is you expose yourself briefly to attack. And your teammates aren't attacking you, but they're doing exactly what Nathan was talking about. They're keeping the speed high. When they hit the front, they don't want it to bog down. Everybody knows that. The last thing you want to hear is the guys further down the line barking at you that you're scrubbing speed off. That's your worst nightmare. It takes so much to build up that momentum. You never want to give a thing back. So, Nathan, you're seeing it again here. As the riders come off the front, this gap opens. So the hardest moment in the race, folks, is that right there, coming off the front and rejoining your team at the back. You wouldn't think it was such a challenge, Nathan, but I mean, go look at the Tour de France. Look at any of the Grand Tours are the last place that you still see team time trials happening, and it's pretty rare these days, and those will be 8 riders that are starting. And that fear of going a little too deep, a little too long on the front, can put you into serious trouble. As we go back and pick up the 3-rider squad, this was the first team out on course, Skyline, we're looking at now. That's going to be Adam Carr, one of the riders here on the team. My heart goes out, Nathan, to any team riding with 3 riders, Justin McQuarrie, Adam Carr, and Andrew Scott.
Yeah, and this is going to be a tough day for them, I believe, with Skyline, because I am seeing they have lost about 14 seconds at this point. They do have a couple of data points here that I'm able to look at, and it does seem that they are losing time to R3R at this point. So 15 seconds into them has been taken out by the team that is chasing them at this point. So Carr, McQuarrie, Kaiser, they're going to have the work really cut out for them. 5.3 watts per kilogram toward the front coming from Carr. Looks like they're averaging almost 6 for their pull through, but they are fading a little bit at this point. And there is a reality that, you know, as we now take a look here, as it's going to be Vitas now with Christopher McGlinchey, this is a team I'd be watching out for. And this is a wild card a little bit, actually, for me. The reality of McGlinchey, Vitas, this team is very strong in real life, and they have a lot of experience with Christopher McGlinchey, actually. And he's going to be able to kind of coach this team through, I think, from in real life into the TTT and Zwifting. So we'll have to see if him and Mikey Mottram can kind of lead this team to a top spot. They've got the power. Now it's going to be whether or not they know the familiarity of the game and whether or not they can translate that into the roads of France out here today.
Yeah, this is an in real life team that has really embraced esports racing. When you talk about Vitas, that well-known bike brand that goes back to many, many decades. So Frederick Shesky, Joe Sutton, Chris McGlinchey, Mikey Mottram, who's another very strong rider. I would distinguish Mikey. Remember, Nathan, how strong he was in the late spring races that we watched this team participating in quite a bit. And then Adam Kenway is the other rider to note. This is a team, again, this would be a woodwork team, I would say, Nathan. They don't come in on paper as one of your top 3, but they're certainly a team that could crack the code, have a fantastic ride. I wouldn't put it past them to win this thing outright today if they have the day that they could. Again, taking a look here at the Vitas team. This team is a continental-based squad, much like Legion of LA coming out of the United States. These guys race together in real life on the road, and they certainly do it like a champs squad out here. So that's going to be Legion of LA that we're taking a look at now, I believe, and it sure is. Here we go, Nathan. There's Justin Williams, Munoz, his brother Corey Williams, and I think that's Corey Lockwood right up on the front right now. It makes sense as he's the reigning U.S. national time trial champion. All right, Nathan, strong squad to watch here.
Yeah, we want to watch out for them. We got Tyler Williams, I believe, Corey Williams, Angel Muniz, and then Justin Williams out on course currently, just getting into their TTT. There are 1 minute gaps between the teams as they head out on course. They're just getting going here. And from what I'm seeing currently, 5.6 on the front, 161 beats per minute currently coming from Tyler Williams as he takes the initial pole. Looks like they'll be trading between 4, though, with only 4 riders. They're 1 short here, looks like, of that premium, what you're really looking to have out there for the most firepower. Now, it doesn't look like Corey's going to be making a pull through. It looks like they're doing a pretty good job here, actually, of keeping that speed high if he is. No, actually just sitting on the wheel. And that's a smart way to do it, not to slow down, though, at all, as it looks like Tyler continues to push on through with a very high power output at this point, 5.7 continuing on now. So we'll see what Legion can make happen out here. Again, this is a team that it's going to be interesting to see how they can translate. Just like Vitas, this is kind of that's kind of the North American version of what can they bring to a TTT, because they don't have nearly as much experience as a team like this. Callis out on course here. This is the Norwegian team, Vidar Mail, the reigning Norwegian national champion. Be on the watch out for them. They have been showing up to the WTRL TTT on Thursday, specifically training for this for the last 2 to 3 weeks. They've been doing okay. They've been in that top 5 to 6 or so in the Thursdays. We'll see if they can really show up and make it happen today here in the Premier.
Underrated would be how I would mention Callis right now, because this is another team that should have very lofty ambitions here in our first ever team time trial in the world of Zwift Racing League. So, Nathan, this team, you mentioned Mel, the reigning Norwegian national road champion, Vidar Mel. Also, there's Martin Roste Omdal, Ovid Oyning Bergseth, Christian Ofdal, and Ole Christian Fagdali is the team that we're looking at here. This is a really, really strong team. And Nathan, I don't remember them missing all that many WTRLs along the way as well. So this team has that great mix of talent and experience. We're going back now and picking up Vitas once again. Now, Nathan, I'm going to be looking for some time checks. They're going to be coming up at 12K. So again, 24.1 kilometers of racing here. Not a whole lot of up and down. You're kind of either turning right or left just about the entire time as this amazing landscape that we're racing in here. This is the newest of the Zwift worlds that we're on, created exclusively for the virtual Tour de France, and now everybody can get out here and race. And Nathan, these little gaps are not ideal. Obviously, staying nicely tucked together like R3R that we're looking at right now. Again, this is another team. So the seeding was interesting. It was based off of the points that were garnered in week 1 of racing, which was basically a road race with start line and finish line. And Nathan, I'll throw it back to you, as it looks like things are starting to hot up out there on course.
Yeah, and it is going to be R3R about to make a catch, actually, of Skyline. They are flying out here. Now, they do have the numbers, though. They have the numbers when it comes to bodies, but I don't think that this is just a numbers game when it comes to bodies out on course, because they have to be putting in a monstrous effort to make this kind of time up this quickly. Either Skyline are having a really hard day out here today, or R3R are absolutely flying. And from what I can see with the time gaps right now, they're within 1 second. They're going to make the catch. They're going to go flying right on by, and they are actually opening up 20 seconds on the chasing team behind them. So which is going to be KRT. So they've opened up a gap from KRT, and they've already caught Skyline. R3R, they are killing it. No pins, R3R for the day. They might take this out here today, Dave.
I hate to say it, Nathan, but Skyline showing up with only 3 riders on a monster day like this, that's like showing up at a gunfight with a jackknife. It's just not going to go your way. No doubt about it as we pick up now a team. So that battle there that Nathan is talking about, that 20-second advantage, that is really significant as we take a look again. What a great camera angle this is as you are flying along here with R3R here. This is a very motivated team, Nathan.
Yeah, super motivated. And they're going to be heading into the first climb of the day, which is going to be taking over the only KOM out on course. It's going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out now with this climb. Have they gone out too hot is going to be one of the questions. You know, in the TTT, if you put in the afterburners too early, you burn the nitrous oxide too early. We're looking at no pins here, coming in with that 15-14, a full 156 behind your team Skyline at this point. So pretty big gaps already. KISS Racing Team, oh, I was incorrect, actually. Only 5 seconds here. No, so we've got a race in our hands now. No pins. They're not walking away with this, as you can see. So 5 seconds here. KISS Racing Team, no pins. HDR, Dutch, Turbo, they'll all be coming in just a moment here, as you can see. There's the Bolt Racing Team. We'll see what time they're going to be bringing in, as they were the 10th seed, it looks like.
And another team that looks like they've cracked the code on how to make this work out here. We've talked a lot about the teams that have been practicing this discipline are going to have a huge advantage. Nathan, so in my research, again, there was a really good YouTube video that was put up by the Saris, the Pros Closet team, one of their riders, Matt Gardner, and he's talking about this technique right here, single file. When the rider comes off the front, they go to the back. He made a very interesting point in that video, though, Nathan. If you time it at all wrong. So, man, you want to talk about feathering it. If you get it a little bit wrong, you'll slot in the wrong place. They do not bother trying to correct the order. Once you're in line, you're in line. There is no reset at all. Because what happens, Nathan, if you start trying to fix those micro details, you start throwing handfuls of seconds out the window, because that is wasted time. Stay on the gas, keep your focus, keep the nose down on the grindstone, and if you make a mistake, it's like in life. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just get going again. Don't hang around and worry about it.
Looking through, we just saw no pins, R3R just a moment ago, going over the top of the King of the Mountain, and the speed pickup over the top. I saw them push 6-7 watts per kilogram very quickly there from Klaus Vandernard. Van Noordernard, they're hammering over the top there, and that was the gain speed over. We'll see if we'll see that from a lot of the other teams there. Now we were just jumping in with Nikki Hug there from the Bolt Racing team, that recent pickup. Hug, a big pickup for them, a juggernaut of Zwift Racing. Now we're jumping in with the team we haven't seen out there just yet for the day here, and this is going to be Arrow. This is your land down under Australian team. This Arrow team was put together strictly of Australian Continental Pro riders, actually. And now Sayers now on the front there. We got Hill as well pushing on through. More solid times so far coming in for them. We'll see how their split's going to come through at the 12K. Again, a reminder quickly that at 12 kilometers is when we are going to see each one of these splits halfway through the course for the 24 in total.
Yeah, this Arrow team is going to be punching above their weight, but let's go ahead and pick up. I think we're back in with Vetus, and we are. Interesting to see that Irish flag, Nathan. Ireland is one of the few nations. What a unique situation they have, where if you're Northern Irish, you compete as an Irish rider rather than with the United Kingdom's team. So it's really, really a crazy situation. Mikey Mottram, they're up on the front. Now, these are some huge engines. Nathan, we're going to be looking at more splits here coming in from 12K, so right at the halfway point. I'm going to expect that Vetus is going to be nudging their way to the top there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be surprised if Vetus is outside of 10 seconds away from the fast time, but we have some of our best teams still just getting out on course here, as this looks like the American Tanner Ward that we're picking up now.
Yeah, Team Turbo is who would be riding for. Interesting to see if Spencer Segerbrook is going to be able to pull this team around very well. Now we do have splits coming on. Wow, it is a close race at the top there. The Dutch team there, only 2 seconds off of no pins. This is ending up being a lot more of a slugfest than I was expecting here with how close this is. This could come down to a 1/10 of a second. You know, with these kind of splits now. Turbo, as we're looking at right now, though, coming in 50 seconds back, though. So really the top spots now. But the reality also is we haven't seen the juggernauts yet. We haven't seen P.O. Auto. We haven't seen Canyon. We haven't seen Stars to Clothes Closet here. They're seeing these times come in first and going, okay, licking their chops a little bit here, saying, we know what we got to handle here. And at these 15, 14, they're looking to blow these numbers out of the water here. But it's still really close at the top there.
With teams starting at a 1 minute interval, everybody will be out on course at this point. So watching, as Nathan said, the top teams, I'm going to throw World Elite Zwifters in there as well. Again, they came in right in the middle of the pack after week 1 on the ZRL, but I expect them to move way up on the leaderboard here, as this is their speciality. This is their neighborhood where they live. So, Nathan, looks like we're back in with the Aero team. This is going to be Ben Hill, Sam Hill, Cooper Sayers, Nick Squillari, and Harley Moore. Pound for pound, ounce for ounce, there's no nation in the world that hits harder than Australia when it comes to elite cycling. Nathan, they have proven that for a long time, and this team knows the drill. Clearly, everybody got the memo on how to race a team time trial out here. They're going to go with the single file format. This is a team not using that format. So here we go, Nathan. We'll talk a lot about this going back and forth, as it looks like this squad riding the blob.
Yeah, and we do see it looks like more now. WZ, this is going to be the World Elite Zwifters. This is the team that won in the WTRL TTT back in number 68 is when we took on R.G.V. We're currently sitting on number 79 this week. So that would be 11 Thursdays ago. So a couple of months back, WZ took the win. We'll see if they can do it again, but they only have 4 riders out there. Now, this is one of the favorites coming in. P.O. Auto here. Peterson, Gorm, Stilling, Nuff, it looks like, and Vistic Grasse. Now, this is interesting to see, though. They did not show up with the rider that they've subbed in, it looks like, out here today, because Foldiger was the rider that took things down for them in the points race. Now they've shown up with a different team. That's kind of a cool thing that we're seeing here with the Zwift Racing League, the ability to sub in for where your talents actually lie, who excels at the TTT, who's got that big engine, on the day. So I think PO Auto, they've put out a strong team out here today that are looking to take this down.
There are horses for courses, Nathan, and exactly the point you make. There's going to be guys that are better suited to this course, and Nicholas Pedersen is certainly one of them. He's been, I would say, one of the most successful racers on the esports platform. This is an all-Danish squad, and this is one of the few teams where most of these riders will ride with each other in real life out here as well. Absolutely a team to watch. They come in, for me, as the top-ranked team. Fredrik Muff Hansen, Nicholas Pedersen, Christoph Vistigre, Jock Stilling, and Christian Gorm is the squad we're looking at. Go ahead and write that name down in pen, P.O. Auto, as you're going to be hearing about them a little bit later in the race. No doubt, Nathan. I will be stunned if they go outside of the top 3 here today. They're that good.
Yeah, Peterson now taking the full pull through here now, as it looks like they are all about the speed out on course here. This is a very well-versed team in the TTT. We saw them dominate through the spring. It was PO Auto, week after week, Dave. I remember them just being unstoppable. They took a little bit of a break, it seemed like, going into summer. Maybe they got outside. There wasn't a whole lot of focus on the TTT, and then all of a sudden this last week, we saw them show up and take down number 78 in the World Tactical Racing League TTT at last Thursday by a solid 20 seconds. So they obviously came back specifically focusing in on the Premier League. That was a warm-up race from what we're seeing now. But this is Canyon, second overall, coming in for the league. They're looking to try and take down PO Auto, as well as the leader of the league right now, which is Saris the Pros Closet. We'll see if Canyon Esports can make it happen, as Alex West and Deigner and Ollie Jones, those 3 tanks I was talking about, those big engines on the team, leading things out.
We are stacking them up like cordwood right now, 10 seconds behind the BRT team. So that 15:03 is right there. So this is the 12K checkpoint. That's the exact middle of the race. You can see it's going to be about a half an hour of suffering out there today. So no pins, 9 seconds back. You might see a couple adjustments here. That's the back end API catching up with everything here, as no pins R3R then at 9 seconds. And then look at this, 10 seconds out is Vetus. Back to 13 for DTCH. It's going to be Callis at 13 now as well. So they're tied there in 4th and 5th. Again, this is that first check. Kiss Racing, they're not out of it at 16. World Elite Zwifters, Nathan. So they're in at 16. Little bit of a surprise. I expect them to be a little bit further up the leaderboard here as we take a look at BRT, your current gold standard. Nathan, they're going to have to hold off an absolute barrage as everybody is out on course, and they're all just rifling through our checkpoint at this point. Legion is through at 1:14 out. So, Nathan, you mentioned not a lot of team time trial experience. I think it shows.
Exactly. I think the reality of Zwifting and pure power, you got to be able to translate that power into the correct way to it. If you're maybe liken it to a cyclocross race or liken it to a mountain bike race, if I'm throwing down big power into a corner and then I'm overshooting that corner over and again, the reality is I wasted a lot of energy there. The energy is not being put into speed. Knowing how to ride Zwift, knowing how to interact with the avatars, so incredibly important. And experience really, really does matter. Over and over again, the question has been from the years past, is Zwift Racing have a tactic? Does it have its own genre? This makes it as obvious as it possibly can be, because Legion are no joke when it comes to power. They can come to and how to use Zwift. They're of that leaderboard right now. 4 seconds back draft. We'll see what they can do as we look at P.O. Auto out on course, hammering away.
This is not an exercise contest. And that creates a much different dynamic. This is a bicycle race. So we're going to use tactics. We're going to use strategy. Nathan has already shown me so much about different ways to do this. How do you go faster? There's a man who knows how to go faster, Gavin Dempster. As a matter of fact, Gavin, you might want to stall the beans there a little bit. They're too hot too early because these guys need to get on your wheel. And Nathan, you just mentioned Ryan Larson is having a great week, isn't he? Just named to the U.S. team. I saw that the Canadian team was announced for the Esports Zwift World Championships with the UCI coming up. And these are some riders we're going to be watching for. Dan Fleeman. Nathan, is there a more experienced rider out here? He is a huge part of the long-term Zwift storyline, as I think they're trying to reorganize things. Not exactly what Saris, the pros closet, is going to be looking for right now. A little bit of gap there in the team. So Ryan Larson with a hard pull, maybe a little too hard right now, Nathan. If you could be in his earpiece, what would you tell Ryan?
Yeah, 7.2 watts per kilogram on the front there. He's like, no, we can't slow down. I think Holden Camus is off the back, actually. They have already lost a rider. 8 seconds. As you can see, he's nowhere in sight here, but he most definitely started. He's the sprinter on the day, and I think the reality is, they don't need their sprinter if he can't hold on. He showed up to maybe put a huge dig in up front, perhaps. Maybe he was there to throw down big orange numbers up front, but Larson, Dempster, and Fleeman at this point have lost Holden. It's a three-man team, and we have seen so far what happens with three-man teams out there. They have gotten gobbled up by the rest of the pack so far, by the rest of the racers out there. So we'll see if they can hold on here. They are the current top team, first seed. Will they get taken down? Now we look at team draft. They were sitting second overall at the last time check. Will they be able to hold on to this as a long-standing team, as we see Bruce Bird, Mir, as well as Gunther out there hammered away right now, Dave?
Yeah, what a compare and contrast moment, Nathan, as it is less than ideal, to say the least, when you're down to 3 riders with that much racing ahead of you when we're talking about Saris, the pros closet team. This, though, almost perfect. If there was a 5th rider here, it would be perfect. As draft here, very, very strong. Almost looks like the old Soviet team here, that red jersey, very, very focused. This is the Canadian squad that we're looking at. And Nathan, I'll be very interested to see what kind of a ride they put together here. So the one is, we take a look up some Canadians, but George Mills Keeling, a U23 rider coming out of the United Kingdom that has a really bright future. And then the American Penn Henderson jumping in as well, as we're going to go back and pick up the 4 riders that remain now. Again, you start with 5. Some teams started actually with 3. But the 3rd rider's front wheel is where your team's time is going to be taken from. Just to give you a little bit of reference point here, the teams then will be put into the scoring schedule with 20 points going to the top team. We're into the 2nd race here, Nathan, and now we're going to pick up Canyon. This came in as one of the top squads to watch.
Yeah, and now we talked early about no pins. They were one of the first teams to go. They were second out on course, but now the juggernauts are coming through. Evoke, Draft, SZ, BRT, and Canyon at the top of the leaderboard right now. 14:52, putting 11 seconds into BRT. SZ there now sitting 13 back. Draft 16. Be interesting to see, because we have not seen Saris the Pros Closet come through for their time yet. They were the last to go out on course, being the top team coming into this race. See what they can pull off. This is the finish line now. No pins coming across the line. Can they bring back some time as it's 200 to go to the line? Are we going to see any bit of a sprint here coming in from them? Looks like none of the avatars standing up at this point, as we see Smart now hammering away. This is going to be it for No Pins, the first team to finish it up out there today. So No Pins, we'll see what kind of time they can pull off. There's the 1K to go batter for KRT as Holtham. They've lost one, it looks like, here for KRT with Hodden and Sadar. Big efforts here, and I think because the reality here, Dave, of how much is on the line, they're letting go of riders if it's within that last few K. They're just like, forget it. We got to go, press on, and pushing as hard as they can. Jones now carrying them over the top for Canyon as they lead the race right now. Canyon have shown up to race, that's for sure. It's Jones and West, the juggernauts of this, the big boys here, hammering away. The Kiwis pulling Canyon, but now Carr here struggling. Team Skyline, I think they're going to have a rough day out here today with 1K to go.
Yeah, again, I used that old the gladiators in the arena. At least they had the courage to show up and fight with 3 guys. As that was a tall order, no doubt about it, Nathan, as we're going to be bringing home riders at a rapid rate at this point. So we're going to start now moving from looking at those time checks out there to looking at the actual finishing time for these riders. It's a big, big day. And certainly some of these teams bit off a little more than they could chew. The ideal situation is to put 3 riders across the line exactly like this. The time will be taken off the Canadian Holtham's wheel there. And we'll get a good look at these times in a moment. So our first team to start, not all that far from the finish. Boy, Nathan, digging deep. I mean, ideally, you would have riders peeling off like a booster rocket in the last 500 meters as you made one final surge. You don't need to finish with 4. You don't need to finish with 5. It's only 3 that matters. So at least they kept the team together. This is going to be Skyline done and dusted out here today. These guys might have dug deeper than anyone, Nathan, with only 3 guys on the team. And here we go, another team with 3 bringing it home.
Yeah, and Van den Bosch here now, it looks like Akalone and Hatter, they are going to be finishing up. They're going through the jigsaw, as I would like to call it here, with 1K to go. They're doing a good job here, keeping things steady, but it looks like it is going to be Van den Bosch that's really going to be the lead-out man at this point coming into the last K. And Dutch, they were actually within the top 10 still coming on through, so we'll see if they can hold on. But again, 3 riders, all that are left here for Dutch. So it looks like this course has been very difficult for a lot of these riders. I think there's also a tactic, like I was saying a little bit earlier, that some of these teams are just dropping riders off because they have put down everything they have for the team to really drag them through this course as quickly as they possibly can. As we get in with Callis here, though, now. They're going through a little bit of jigsaw now. We'll see what kind of time they can pull off. They were also sitting within the top 10 through that 12K check mark. They're about to catch a couple of riders actually out on course. Here's Dutch Racing, though. They're going to be finishing up 300 meters to go. As again, Van den Bosch to the front. Actually looks like he's got a couple of extra matches to burn. Aklon now going to come on through. It's going to be all about those orange numbers to punch the line because it's going to come right down to seconds when it comes to who takes down the podiums today.
Just Van den Bosch, Bas Petter, and Jasper Okelon. Their teammate Freddie van der Ploeg will be coming across the line a little bit later, Nathan. So we haven't seen that much cross-pollination out there on course today. It can be challenging when you have a team catching at this level, though it doesn't happen all that often. Although it looks like one of the Turbo riders, actually it is Turbo getting caught here. Back to Sarah's the Pros Closet.
Caught there. Yep, Sarah's the Pros Closet with Dempster here, Larson, Fleeman, and Dempster here looks like he's having a really good day. It was Larson, though, earlier that we saw pulling through at 7+ watts per kilogram. We'll see what they can pull off. We're going to see if we can get some splits coming in here, as this is going to be the question. Coming into this race, Canyon 1 point behind. Will they be able to take down Stars the Pros Closet? They were leading earlier. Now it does look like Callis did overtake Turbo. Go right on by with that 1K to go. Callis having a good day. Turbo have fallen backwards, it looks like. Or is Callis just that fast today? And, you know, that first 12K, I think a lot of teams went out super hot. I saw really, really high heart rates now as we do see the times coming on in. And look at this. Canyon, 14:54, BRT, 10 seconds back, SZ, 11, Stars to Pros Closet, 18 seconds. They are all the way back in 6th place. STPC, as you can see there, they have a lot of time to make up here, and we are already into the second half of the race. There's probably only a few K to go. What is going to happen here? Because I think we may see a big change in the overall standings, actually. Canyon may take over, but where's PO Auto?
Well,
interesting, Dave.
I was just going to say
some serious upsets right now.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that check from P.O. Auto. Canyon having a beautiful ride out here. As you can see, just a little over 10 seconds faster. We're going to finish up Turbo here with Spencer's second boost, bringing the team across the line. Tanner Ward will be the rider that they score their time from. So you never know when you see two riders, Nathan, if they're off the back of the three or off the front with three behind them. And then we're going to go back to Legion. That's going to be Corey Williams, the rider that we're looking at right now. Angel Munoz, and then that should be Corey Lockwood is my guess, Nathan, for the other rider here, the really strong American time trialist out of Bakersfield, California. That almost surely would be Lockwood. I think his avatar will show me in a moment, but definitely Angel Munoz and Corey Williams. So Justin Williams, Nathan, speaking to specialists, one of the best sprinters that America has ever seen, but his brother Corey, a little bit younger. The other Williams on this team that took the start, Tyler Williams, is from Northern California and is a great teammate, but not a brother of the Williams, who are the team principals for that squad as well. But let's go back and pick up Canyon. This is a top three ride that we're looking at, Nathan. All right, you can hear them digging in. Now that crack of the whip means that they really try to rally. Keep the speed high, boys. Keep the speed high.
You know what's interesting, Dave, is how close this race is, though. 24K is what they're covering here, going by a P.O. Auto rider there, actually. So interesting to see P.O. Auto maybe falling apart a little bit out here today. But Canyon, esports right now, Ollie Jones pressing through. Where is the duck? I believe Lionel just took an initial poll, took a poll just a moment ago. That might have been him off the back here going through. So Jones, West, again, as I said earlier, they are
there he is.
Really the tanks of this. There's Digner. I'm not sure Vyastin, that maybe
no,
Vyastin
right.
there sitting third wheel. So I think Vyastin maybe took some mega polls early. And, with the kind of rider that he is, there is a reality that given orange numbers, given that punch up front, but then allowing, giving that high speed over and over again, but then allowing what they have for these big engines, the freight trains, to just do their work. Maybe that was what the best role that he could possibly play is. We have the Bolt Racing team finishing up their final 300 meters.
Yeah, we've gotten to know the run-in to the finish pretty well right now here. And there is the line. They're going to bring four riders. Not many teams are doing that today. Hugh Davies there, the Welsh rider, Nikki Hug, across the line, and they will score that time. This is not ideal, taking a look here at Legion of LA. But Nathan, talk about these aren't the S's, but they're pretty similar, aren't they? Really hard to hold a team together here. It's almost like being on a roller coaster ride.
Lots of bumps through here. Exactly. Very good explanation of a roller coaster. And if you do not carry the speed through correctly, you can find yourself slowing down for your team. I think that's what's happening here. I think Corey's going, whoa, I've punched over a couple of these little undulations, and now as we go through this jigsaw, it can be very difficult to hold on through these turns if you don't hold that speed. You can see this little elevation right here, and it's going to come back downhill through that 1K to go marker in just a moment. Again, look at this uphill, 5-6% for just a moment, and these bumps really, really matter, because whether or not you press on and have someone on your wheel, it's going to be everything for those final times. Now, in with Evoke, they've done an amazing job, actually, to hold things. And is this actually Evoke? I'm going to have to, yes, it is. With Austin, it is going to be with Neil Ostenfeld. Wally is out there as well. Thrall, so solid ride from them. I wonder if these, keeping the numbers together, this is a tactic that perhaps will pay off for them in the back end of the course, because the reality of the times between first place and 10th place, we were only looking at about 10, maybe 15 seconds. So we'll have to see how this plays out here, as it's a very, very close race out there today. 5 to the line might really matter, Dave.
Yeah, they might be the only team that have 5 when they go to the line. As you can see, Lionel is still racing. He's our Belgian on this Canyon team. Alex West, Ollie Jones, and Philip Digner are the riders that we're looking at. So again, this is Canyon. They're in the mix, part of the conversation. And Nathan, they're going to be bringing this home pretty quickly here. But I do like your point about Evoke as well. Keeping 5 together pays off in the last 5K, believe me, because that's where the ability, if you think about that rotation on the front, right? When you're down to 3 riders, you're going to be spending on average 33% of your time with your nose in the wind. It's down to 20% when you're on a team that still has 5 riders, and especially if you've been able to just keep that battery charged. Let's go ahead and bring These boys across the line here, we finished more than half our teams already. It's not going to be all that long until we're done and dusted. That's going to be Evoke going past the Legion of LA team. This Evoke team, I'm glad we're picking them up. They're having a really great ride today. Connor McGoldrick, Neil Ostenfeld, Patrick Walling, Simon Collard, and Tom Thrall is the squad. That's Thrall, the Canadian. They're moving on to the front in the white jerseys here, Nathan. They're hitting hard out here. Evoke in full effect.
Fully expecting Thrall to be pulling big numbers toward the finish here. They sprinted for second across the line in the points race up on the top of that reverse KOM in Titans Grove. So Thrall most likely going to be a big engine and a little bit of a firework at the end here as Wally comes on through here. They're doing a great job of snowballing the front end of that pack here at this point. And this gives you exactly what we're talking about having that specific Zwift tactic. You know, the ability to snowball, avalanche your speed through as they come on through here for that last 100 meters. Now, this is going to be Evoke now, as actually Legion getting a little mixed in there, but most likely trying to sprint on through. I'm not sure they were looking for a draft there, Dave. I think they were just trying to sprint for their line, and I would give it to them there as far as that goes. You know, it wasn't going to really affect the whole of the race. They were just sprinting to the line as we look Arrow coming through that last 1K.
Nathan, I'm 100% with you. If I was the UCI commissar there, I would be saying no problem. They were finishing their ride. They weren't trying to catch the draft of the team that had just passed them. There's a huge difference, and sometimes you have to look at intent as well. So they're good, no problem. I'm a big fan of that Legion of LA program and the Evoke program. I'm a big fan of Sweden as well. There's a lot of Swedish flags up on the screen right now. So this is going to be Team Swedish Zwifters. This is Samuel Brandlund, Johan Noren, Anders Frisk, Matthias Lundqvist, and Christopher Safstrom. And there's Christopher tagged right on the back, Frisk on the front. As we're going to go back in, I think this is the Australians, Nathan, the Arrow team, and it is the Hill brothers, Sam and Ben.
Yeah, it does look like Arrow only finishing with 3, so obviously a hard day for them out there today as they come across the line to see what kind of time they're going to be pulling off. As we wait for the times to update here, Frisk, it looks like, and the rest of the SZ team, interesting to see that they dropped off Brandlin. Brandlin, if he started on the day, this is, you know, one of the strongest riders we've ever seen in racing out on Zwift. So Brandlin, maybe some big pulls from early on or having a rough day, but with no Samuel, interesting to see 100 meters to go.
Such an interesting discipline where having one or two strong riders isn't the name of the game. It's having depth. I mean, sure, every team, I mean, the way human nature works, you're going to have a strongest rider on your team, and that rider needs to learn how to take longer pulls, not faster pulls, and keep the average speed for the team up. Let's take a look now, Nathan. Bolt race team. So our first times are in. I'm still predicting we see sub 30. We have seeded this with the top teams from race 1 in the ZRL. It wasn't a team time trial, but Nathan, you alluded to off air earlier that you can expect the top riders. As we said with Kate the other day, when you're good, you're good. And if you can win in that scratch race, you should be good out here in the team time trial. We'll see if that plays out, as Canyon should be pretty close to bringing this one home here. The horses can smell the barn at this point.
I really want to highlight there that Bolt Racing Team have obviously figured out a lot about how the game works, because they averaged 4.9 watts per kilogram across the course. That was less than most of the other teams that we saw below them there. Tells you a lot about where you put your avatar and when. It makes a huge difference. Whether or not you use that speed correctly, whether or not you use the tactic correctly, is going to get you across the line quicker. Now we do see the second overall coming in. I think if they held on at the top of the leaderboard, Canyon might be winning on the day. Looks like they caught up to Pio Auto, who I had a big,
wow.
I was a lot of expectations for Pio Auto today. I'm not sure they showed up, though, as Canyon, I think, might have just taken over the lead in the series. We'll have to wait and see, though, because as we see Bolt Racing Team still holding on at the top. Did they win this outright? We're looking for some updates here on the times yet. We won't get them for a little bit here, but Canyon was at the time check. There's no way they lost that much time, coming across here. So we'll have to wait for the data to update here in just a few moments.
the second half of the course was a little bit more challenging than the first half. If you look at the vertical gain there, which means you're going to see a few more seconds on the back end than the front end. This is a team that came in with high expectations as well. We know that they've lost a couple riders along the way. So an American, a Brit, and a Scotsman walk into a bar, right? Because that's what you got right here. Larson, Fleeman, and Dempster. This team has had success in this team time trial discipline, but not quite at this level, right, Nathan? This is the highest level we've ever seen. Back to you, boss.
Larson looks so strong today. Do you see how he's pulling away from the rest of the team? Now, look, we talked about BRT, the Bolt Racing team. They came through with 4.9 on average and had that top spot. But when you put together the pure power of Ollie Jones, Alex West at 5.8 average, and the experience, that's how you end up at that top spot there, as you just saw Canyon. Now it's going to be Dempster, Larson, Fleeman. They're trying to hold on. It's been well over a minute, I think, Dave. They started one back. They were the top seed, but I think that's changing after week one as we see them coming across the line. They lost their man Holden. They came in with 4 and now across the line with 3. Solid effort here, but I have a feeling they're going to be hitting their handlebars with a little bit of frustration after that ride. We'll have to wait and see, though.
Well, I'm hitting my handlebars with a little bit of frustration of my pre-race picks, Nathan, because we had to acknowledge there were a lot of question marks coming into this race, that's for sure. And there's some teams that stepped up. There's teams that found another level, and I think there's teams that realize that they've got a lot of work to do if they want to win the ZRL. This is an 8-race series. It goes all the way to December 15th. So you got some time to fix things out here, but we learned a lot out here today. And one thing's for sure, all that hype about Canyon, well, it's not bragging if you can back it up.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. You know, Canyon Esports, what an amazing ride they're out there by today. We'll have to wait and see. We're still waiting for official results. Like you say, you want to get it right. You don't want to, as we wait for them to come on through. Don't want to call it too early. We see draft coming across the line. All the replays here of the teams. Arrow there with 3. SZ, a little bit of kick from Frisk there to look for those final little seconds. Here's the catch almost of Pio Auto from Canyon Esports. Amazing ride. These were the leaders coming in. This is Stars to Pros Closet. Not sure they're going to hold on. And, Canyon Esports, they haven't been showing up too much to the TTT, so I was like not sure what to expect. But with a team that takes Zwift Racing so seriously, Dave, they obviously have been committed to this for years at this point. They've been doing their homework quietly, I think, in the background, getting the work done, where nobody's watching. It's the team that's got that kind of integrity, I think, to say, no, when we show up to win. And I think they've shown that out here today, that Canyon Esports, regardless of whether or not they've had that experience in racing week in and week out. I said Pio Auto, they've been dominating, but they were almost caught by Canyon out here today. I think Canyon, they're saying, we're here to win this league overall.
Reminds me of the 3-time Olympic gold medalist, Kristen Armstrong. Nathan, in Olympic years, you would barely hear from her, would only race a few times and make sure that she was qualified. Well, that's the champion standard that we talk about. You don't show your cards before you need to. You don't boast before the race. You show up and deliver. And that's exactly, and Nathan, Canyon Esports has set the platinum standard for how you run a team, their social media. Everything that this team does is professional. So we are right now, as you said, Nathan, do you want the result right now or do you want them correct? Well, we're going to give them to you correct. So it's going to take just a moment to sort everything out, and we'll get a good look at what happens here. Again, just to lay some groundwork for you, the teams then will be placed in order on their timed performance today. Fastest team wins, slowest team will be 17th. Then we move that into a points table. And that points table then awards 20 to the top team. You could see that we had one race last week, so we'll combine the tally here, and we'll find out who our new Zwift Racing League overall team leader is. This team time trial, Nathan, is a great example of how cycling is a team sport. Sometimes you have individual glory. That's the rider on top of the podium on a road race day. And some days the entire team shares the glory. What's really unique about team time trialing, Nathan, there's a rider, just like in the team pursuit on the velodrome, there's a rider who may have done a tremendous amount of work, who it doesn't even finish in that group, who is still a part of the victory. I'll throw it back to you, as it sounds like they're just about ready to show us the results from a historic day of racing here.
Yeah, amazing racing out here as we wait in anticipation to see how it played out. And there it is. Canyon Esports, it stays the same from the last time we looked at it here. Walk away with it. Now, I want to give a big shout out, though. Bolt Racing Team, to be honest, they're a long-standing team. They weren't necessarily on my radar for this. But look at that. Almost a full watt per kilogram. You want to tell me there isn't Zwiftcraft? That is a huge testament to the reality that if you know how to ride this game, you can get huge amounts of speed out of those avatars there. Team Zwift Racers there coming through 27 seconds back from that top time for third. Evoke followed up by Cyrus the Clothes Closet there. That's a really good ride still, even after coming across the line with too short. Then No Pins, Callus Esports, Vitas holds on for 8th, Dutch Racing, and then Arrow there 1 minute back, Dave.
Yeah, Nathan, that's a look at how the teams finished on the day. We can also take a look at how the points have sorted out for the overall Zwift Racing League. So congratulations again to Canyon Esports, the fastest rider of the day. Look at that, 5.8 watts per kilo was the average that you see there. Nathan makes a fantastic point about that Bolt Racing Team, BRT, in at 4.9, but good for second. I mean, you can see that the Swedish Zwifters did more work, but they weren't faster than BRT. So let's take a look at the points here then. So we had a timed team time trial today, and now we get to see how this sorted out in Canyon Esports with the win and a second with 39 total points. That's domination in the first 2 weeks of racing here. Saris the Pros Closet does themselves a favor and holds on with 36 points for second. Team Swedish Zwifters with 35. Evoke in fourth with 32. Then it's BRT, Arrow, PO Auto, Vitas Pro Cycling, Callus in 9th, and then the World Elite Zwifters in 10th after 2 weeks of racing.
Yeah, and if you do want to get involved in racing like you just saw, you can jump on over into the Community League on Tuesdays. The registration's closed currently, but we will reopen registration later in the week. It just gets closed down to make sure that all of the start times can get sorted for each one of the zones. There's a race for the Australias that lands down unders APAC. There's also races for European and then the Americas. So make sure to go check that out with 4 different zones of racing, both Americas East and West, actually. So heading over to the women's races, we look forward to that. The TTN, they are actually going to be out on course already. But let's take a look quickly, though, at what happened last week in the women's Premier Division. And we were out on the big foothills, of course, with the 50.04 kilometers, 31.1 miles, and 3 Queen of the Mountains for them to take on early on. Leaving the Tempest Fugas Flats, it was going to be Heino trying to challenge Illy Gardner, but KRT with Illy Gardner's solo rider taking down so many points in the day. But the story of the day is continually going to be that solo KRT rider versus Heino trying to take down as many points as they possibly can, following her around. Bree Wilson there, as we can see, they're coming from Arrow, always trying to stay involved. And it was Kristen Kolchinski there, the new startup Zwift-only racer, never raced a bike in real life, the new pickup for 2020, who was leading things out over the Queen of the Mountain as best as she could. Early attack, but no, again, Gardner and Lou Bates. Mary Wilkinson with the early attack before they hit the top, but Gardner shows again what she's worth and hammers it with a solid third time taking the Queen of the Mountain points. Kiss Racing Team coming into the final with 15, 3-point difference between her and, essentially Gilly Gardner versus Heino. Bates tried to take it down with an aerial power up with about 200 meters to go. Not going to happen. Bates leads out a sprint for Gardner, who ends up taking down the final across the line. Every Queen of the Mountain goes the KISS Racing team, but Heino, with consistency, ended up taking down the points for the overall. So it ended up being standings with Heino Racing Team, then Arrow, then KISS Racing Team still taking third because of all the consistency from Illy Gardner. No pins, R3R with Lou Bates. 2020 holding on for fifth. Cryo RDT, I Race Like a Girl, Team Swedish Swift Racers, Evoke Bike presented by Insured, and then Cano Esports is the situation currently for the team points. So heading into the TTT, going to be interesting, Dave, with the Heino situation. Can they continue to walk away with it?
Well, let's take a look, Nathan, at the team that Heino brought today's team time trial, 24.1 kilometers, same course as the men, and you're going to see some big names here. As a matter of fact, I'd say one of the legends of Zwift, Vicky Nealon on this squad, Lise Huback, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, and Alice Lethbridge. Actually, Nathan, I'll take that back. This is a team with all legends. This squad brings a tremendous amount of experience. They also know their way around a team time trial. They come in as prohibitive favorites in my book, but the team they're probably the most worried about would have to be No Pins R3R. This is a very strong squad that brought their A game today.
Yeah, watch out for R3R. Really, Lou Bates, that effort there that we saw from her last week, we'll see if they can hold down the similar. But now the question is, can the rest of the team follow up the strength of Bates? Is she going to find herself gapping it all, the rest of this team throughout? We'll see if they can hold on, because we saw over the Queen of the Mountains, maybe the inability to hang on, but on a flatter course, will the pure power of the rest of this team be able to pull something off here and chase down Heino? Heino, though, with Huback on there out there today, well, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not anybody can challenge him, Dave.
I agree, Nathan. One team that's going to look to raise their level is 2020. What a fascinating story this team is. You look at the complete spectrum of experience here. Georgia Simmerling, the Canadian, was just named to Canada's Esports World Championship team. Nathan, she's represented Canada in the Summer Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and has medaled. You don't get any more experience than Georgia Simmerling. All the way to the other end of the spectrum, a rider who has literally never pinned on a number before, has never even been to a bicycle race, let alone raced in one. Talking about someone who came from the bottom and is now at the top, Kristen Kolchinsky is one of the best stories in esports today. Antonina Reznikov, the Israeli athlete, originally from Ukraine. These are two new additions to the squad. And then another one of our friends in the world of Zwift, Shayna Paulus and Charlotte Backus. This team is really interesting. Nathan, I'm going to put it out there. If they go top 5 today, they've had a great day. They go outside of top 5, they haven't met their standards. So that team is going to have an interesting challenge in front of them. I can't wait. Goosebumps are already on my arms. The first team should be out on course. Back to you, Nathan.
Yeah, we are going to be jumping into the racing action. We're 7 minutes into the racing, so lots of teams are going to already be out on course here. That pickup, though, great point there with 2020. Charlotte Backus, I think that she's going to be a lot of intel on that team as we jump in with Vixen. Stephanie Sidlick, this is a name that we need to be watching out for. Sidlick is a very strong rider here. Now we do see at the front there, it does look like Gill as well as Crone. Now McGregor all making something happen here from Vixen now as Crone look to take a little bit of a rest at the back there, getting the draft to try and get those reserves back up. King now at the back as Conabear takes a pole through, and this is going to be Team Fearless, long-standing women's team. One of the first women's teams, actually, to really develop out of Zwift Racing. Good to see them represented here in the Premier League as we see Vision pulling through with Ellen Tarquino, and it's going to be Hall at the back of this pack right now.
Yeah, another team, Nathan, starting with only 3. We talked about the competitive disadvantage that you're at. Corrine Hall, Ellen Tarquino, and Kathy Mockner. The team here, much like Skyline in the men's race, they're going up against some giants out here full squadras, that's for sure. That Vision Racing team that we're looking at right now is another one of the teams that has a long-seated history in the sport of competitive racing in esports, no doubt about it. Nate, that Velocity Vixen team, Nathan, that we were on earlier, that's an interesting team. That might be the team that comes out of the woodwork for us out here today. I have to say that they haven't really been on my radar. That rider that we jumped in with, Stephanie Sidlick, talented athlete, no doubt about it, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But again, this is the Vision team that we're looking at. Team starting with 5, just like in the men. The third rider's front wheel is where we'll take the team's time from. And 5 riders, you can only imagine the ability just to get off of the front, take a deep breath. We've talked about the different formations that you see. The challenges are plenty, but the big reward is that only one team will be on the top of the podium here. And again, an 8-race series. Every pedal stroke matters out here.
Team TFC that we're looking at right now, the Friday Criterium old school team. For those that are newer to the world of Zwift, this is one of the first teams that ever got a, not a kitten game. It took them a while. That was almost a running joke about getting a kitten game for TFC. But TFC, they actually started off of starting races for C and D category riders early on, and now have started getting way more into esports in the last year or so, and have showed up now with an elite squad, which is really great to see. Now back in with Vision, they only started with 3 out there, with Corinne Hall, Ellen Tarquino, Kathy Machner. So be interesting to see what they can hold down out here today, as we do see Corinne Hall there, 177 beats per minute currently, 225, as Ellen Tarquino seems to really be leading things out here for them at 320 plus watts, 166 beats per minute. Tarquino, there was such a low heart rate. As we looked at that data, interesting to see that the other riders were really suffering. I think Tarquino is going to be the one that's going to be able to just freight train this for them. As Polly Mason takes over for Stars to Pros Closet, this is going to be the women's side of Stars to Pros Closet. We'll see what they can throw down here with 5 riders.
Kai Takashita is the Japanese rider now living in Chicago. 2 of these riders have extensive gravel racing experience, Christy Tracy being the other. Christy just left there, but was just named to the U.S. national team along with, well, quite a few riders actually. Kristen Kolchinsky was another that we were talking about, her rapid ascension. I mean, nobody has gone onto a world championship team taking out a UCI license with 0 kilometers of actual racing experience. But now here we go, jumping in with Fran Bamburst, Gemma Felstad, Helen McKay, and Line Herup Madsen, the Danish rider on the, this is Turbo, correct?
Yeah, it looks like we are looking at Team Turbo here with Felstad, Bambust, and then it's going to be McKay and Herup Madsen hammering away right now. So Team Turbo, we'll see what they can pull off out here today. This is going to be a team to watch out for. A lot of time, a sprinters team that I'd be watching out for. So, but they showed up with Herup Madsen, I think, out here in order to specifically have a good engine. Now, Clark here, Pitzer, Keller, as well as McRosty. Now, this is a team, Evoke. This, I think, is going to be a team to watch out for that's going to excel specifically in the team time trial out here today, Dave, because this team has the power and the experience. This is the team where you kind of both worlds meet. In real life power, they got Pitzer out here. She's reigning U.S. national champion out on Zwift as well. And McRosty as well as Keller with some in real life. And now almost switching over to mainly esports actually in the last few months. So I think Evoke, one to watch out here for today. We'll see what kind of time they can pull off as we jump in with Canyon. On the women's side of things, Hildonen sitting on the back.
Yeah, and just like on the men's program, Canyon brings their A game every race that they show up at. This Canyon esports team has Cecile Lejeune, Siri Hidden, the Finnish rider, Kristen Falk, Mary Wilkinson, and Claudia Bering. It looks like just 3, though. So Cecile is there, Siri is there. I said Finnish. That's Danish. My apologies. Those are 2 flags that are pretty easy to tell apart, to tell you the truth. And then Kristen Falk is the other rider there. So down to 3 already.
Yeah,
not sure which rider they lost here.
Falk here. As we see,
so yeah, it looks like a lot of
Johan
teams.
And Wendorf from I Race Like a Girl, Jewett there as well. And this is going to be the team to watch out for, I think, as far as an upset goes. And they're extremely experienced when it comes to TTT. They've been out on the Thursdays team time trial over and over again. Top 3, Dave, we've seen them taken down almost every week for the last few months. So with that time trial slash triathlete, the high level triathletes out there, they're just going to have engines that can pull all day long.
Fantastic point, Nathan, because here's the difference. Top 3 in WTRL, but the other teams that we normally see, Wonder Women, well, that team actually makes up a lot of Evoke right now. Monali Keller is a rider that would ride with Wonder Woman for WTRL on Thursdays. As we mentioned, this format, this team time trial format, came from WTRL 78 weeks ago. Actually, I guess 79, as this Thursday will be the 79th. So they have a lot of experience on that team. And the teams that they have been just getting very close to beating aren't here. Those teams are disbanded and spread out amongst many teams that we have racing here. So it's a really interesting dynamic that we have. But if you want to look at the team that's done the best week in, week out on WTRL, that's here with us in the Zwift Racing League, that would be Evoke. I'm expecting top 3 from them here today. Back to you, Nathan, as we pick up another team working hard here. First check at 12K. So if you're just joining us for the women's race, we do have one split for you before we bring it on home and start as we bring riders across the line, sorting out who's going to be the queens of esports today.
Well, it's interesting you say Evoke. They've got a couple of riders that have done well week in and week out. Like you had said, I don't know about disbanded, but a lot of these riders have drafted riders from some of these other teams that are competing out of the community in the WTRL TTT on Thursdays. I Race Like a Girl, though, they have been consistently top 3 over and over and over again, battling it out with Wonder Women, Socks for Watts, so I think I Race Like a Girl, be on the watch out for them, but also Evoke, they have been competitive, but they have specific riders that ride for a couple of other community teams that are on Evoke that are really going to bring a lot of experience and power to a TTT. So be on the watch out for Evoke being able to really show what they're worth in the Premier League because of their participation in the Thursday TTT. Now, as we look at iRace Girl, Wettendorf here, 306 watts, or Kessler with that pro triathlete jersey, that little green jersey next to the name that, as you can see there on screen. It means in real life, pro level triathlete. Tamara Jewett there as well. 257, 300 watts now coming through now. But Kessler up and out of the saddle just continues to hammer away. Look at the cadence of that up and out of the saddle, just hammering 327, 335 watts, 161 as she pulls her team along.
You make a really good point there, Nathan, and that's one of the things that you remember is there are a lot of moving pieces right now. At this point in the season, we're really starting to uncover so many of these transfers that have happened. That's going to be all right. So again, little splits opening up through the team here. This is exactly what you're trying to avoid. Carly Johan is in a tough spot. You don't want to drop the riders behind you, but you need to stay in the draft yourself. Nathan, are they going to? No, looks like they'll come back here. That's going to be Ramsey, the Dutch rider here, that's going to be able to bring this back together. That was a pretty quick recovery out there, as that's going to be Meredith Kessler is the rider that we're looking at right now as we go now and pick up for the first time. This is going to be the 2020 team that we're looking at. Antonina Reznikov, Charlotte Backus, Georgia Simmerling, the multi-time Olympian that we mentioned, the great story of Kristen Kolchinski, and then Shayna Paulus as well. This is a team that is really looking to make their mark in the team time trial today, Nathan, 2020.
Look at the focus here now coming from the riders, as it's going to be hammering away on the front there. It's going to be Reznikov actually now. And looking through here, we're going to see currently 176 beats per minute currently coming from Reznikov, as we do see Simmerling also. Interesting enough to see that 2 of the riders here currently on screen have just been named to World Championship teams for their country.
I'd like to point out that we have the wrong names with the wrong riders. Kristen Kolchinski is actually the rider all the way over on the left, and Reznikov is the rider in Kolchinski's place there. So again, just switch Reznikov and Kolchinski. All the other riders are correct.
As 2020, this is gonna be a team that's gonna be able to absolutely challenge, I think, out here today with the pickups here. They're gonna be communicating on Discord. As Simmerly now takes over at the front here. 2020, Reznikov sitting in, and it'll be interesting to see. Now, you see those gaps? You talked about that gap there that was opening up at the back of the pack over and over again. And I think that's tactical almost, though, Dave. And I think that these teams are going to start figuring out that because speed is king, that allowing a little bit of if you can not allow the gap to go, great. But you never want the lead rider to slow down. And you want the lead rider to boost through. You want them to really press through to the front of the pack, actually, with as much speed as they possibly can. And it's up to the riders to chase down the other ones, actually, in order to keep that speed as high as possible. I think that's why you're seeing that gap, actually, as they come on through. As we see Evoke here with Keller sitting in second wheel, Clark taking the pole.
Boy, it's funny, that last shot we showed, you could see one spot was empty and one rider, Yana, there had stopped riding, so that was the three that were left still going. So once you're off the back of your team, you're not going to affect the time. There's no point in continuing on out there. You soldier on with the three riders that you have. It's obviously an ideal situation to have the entire team of five, and here we go. This squad is really rolling right now, Nathan. This looks like a top five at worst, the ride we're looking at right now on screen. And again, really good example of the two different formats. There's basically two styles that you see here. The single file and we call it the blob technique. And this is actually kind of looking at a little of both.
Yeah, we do have Gill here. It's going to be Haley Gill at the front there, 5.0 watts per kilogram. Current leader, Sidlik sitting in second wheel. Then it's going to be Nasisi there for the Vixen team. Still with five. Solid effort here so far coming from Velocity Vixen. Very strong team, long-standing team out in the world of esports here amongst the women. And they were our first team to go out on course, so would have been our last seed. But with the time that they have out here today, it'll be interesting to see perhaps they can better their points and get into that top 10 standing out there. Now we're in with Team Fearless here, hammering away. They're coming into their first checkpoint as well, as we're going to be looking to get those. As it's going to be King with Melanie King. She's taking a pole, 4.5 watts per kilogram currently. They're only 32 seconds back, so they've made 30 seconds or so up on Velocity Vixen here. So Fearless taking some time out of the seed that started ahead of them. That's, the least that they could expect of themselves. They've also kind of distanced themselves, it looks like, from the team that started behind them. That is going to be Vision, I believe. So solid ride here coming from Fearless with only 3 riders left, as we see Velocity Vixen taking on their Queen of the Mountain on the day.
Yeah, Velocity Vixen, again, this is the team of Angie Bionanasisi, Darlene Crone, Haley Gill, Bronwyn McGregor, and Stephanie Seidick, as they hit one of the few uphill sectors on this course here, Nathan, bringing the speeds down and the wattage up for a moment. As we go back in now, one of the 3-rider squads, this is going to be Fearless. We've mentioned Philippa Hobbs. Actually, we've mentioned Melanie King, so good to get Rebecca Lineker and Philippa Hobbs a shout out there. Working in a 3-rider team, you're really up against it out there, as you can see the difference right now, having the ability to use this draft, get off the front for a little bit, and just sort of reset yourself as you try to keep the speed as high as you can. So they've got no wiggle room, as we say, going back as we moving from team to team out here right now, Nathan.
Yeah, interesting to see Sharon Bird, very strong rider. She was part of the live finals for the national champions in the UK. Watch out for her to be a big leader here. Kirsten Pohl's also out there. Deborah Sluice-Balker, and it's going to be Claire Reed, all very familiar names in the community of Zwift Racing. Longest standing team, one of the longest standing teams is the KISS Racing team out here on Zwift. But interesting to see, where is Illy Gardner? No Gardner, which means what is happening this week with this team? Will they be able to pull off something similar? They were sitting in a top 5, I believe 3rd place overall coming in for the points. So will they be able to hold on to that place? Missing one of their strongest riders out here today. They're going to have a lot of work cut out for them with only 4.
It is worth noting that the team started in reverse order of their performance on week number 1. So typically you'd expect to see, although it doesn't really hold completely true here, there's a lot of variables at play. And we're going to be starting to look at these 12-kilometer checks here. That's the only split that we're going to have. So that data is going to be absolutely critical. As Nathan, I am really curious to see what team is going to put up the fast time at that point and how close it is. This race is all over the shop right now, as we should have all of our women's teams on course at this point.
Yeah, actually, for the start of the KISS Racing team, Italy did not take the line, it looks like, this week. So it was Ing Jansen, I believe, that has not made the front group, or the group made the group. And has been dropped off a little bit earlier. Now this is going to be Team Arrow. This is the women's side of that. And this is a team to watch out for. They've been showing up, taking top 10s in the WTRL Platinum League almost every single week, actually. So Jenny Pettinen, Lisa Jacob, Bree Playo, and Busy Butterworth, they are hammering away out on this course. And as you said, the horses for courses idea here, you know, I think that this is the team that they have played this team because these are their strongest pure power riders when it comes to a flatter course. As you can see, 319 watts currently coming from Bree Playo.
Wow.
We've seen her name over and over again in the races when it comes to those broadcasts we have specifically for the Lands Down Under there, the Australian broadcast. So 194 beats per minute, huge pull here coming from Playo.
You might not see too many heart rates go higher than that out here. Getting very, very close to 200 beats per minute. Nathan, that's an interesting thought there, as Arrow does have a lot of experience, but we don't see them in what we call the Premier Platinum League of racing on Thursdays. They're in Australia, so they race in a time zone that fits for them. That's a team that's going to be really interesting. That would be an off-the-radar team when you look at what we've got out here. Not many squads still have 5 together at this point, but this one does. Here's some splits coming in now. So, all right, it's Saris the Pros Closet with a 16:49. Nathan, that's your benchmark time right now. That's a team of Tracy.
Evoke just comes in. The change of the times there just a moment ago here. Now we might have a little bit. Now the data does take a little time to catch up there, but Evoke there 16:45 starts the close call. The Vision with only 3 riders out there. Ellen Tarquino obviously having an amazing ride, almost pulling that team along almost solo at times here. Wow, what a ride here from Vision. But I Race Like a Girl, we're still waiting for them at that checkpoint. We're still waiting for, I believe we've got Heino, obviously. Where are they at? So lots could change here. But Evoke, you said that's a team to watch out for. A lot of experience there with McRosty, and specifically Motley Keller McRosty. Tons of experience when it comes to TTT.
Monley Keller is a natural-born leader. There's no doubt about it. She's, has that command of personality without any doubt. She's on the front right now. This racer out of Seattle, Washington, as they go single file right now. Nathan, I am really interested to see that Heino team. Also, this I Race Like a Girl time. They should be through shortly here. This checkpoint at the exact midpoint of the race. So you can see only 4 seconds there between Saris the Pros Closet and Evoke. That one's going to be just going right down to the line. Nathan earlier had predicted we could see a win by less than a second out here, and that certainly holds true. Vision in 3rd right now, but Canyon being at 36 seconds out, I think that's the big surprise right now. Right now, Nathan, I expected them to be a little closer to the lead.
Yeah, Canyon Fearless battling it out there as we do see Keller here pulling the
They're going to lose one.
Evoke over the top. Perhaps
they said goodbye to a rider.
We'll see.
Well, I think they did.
Hold on, Keller's really pressing on. She's getting a little bit of a gap here. We'll have to wait and see. McRosty now pulling on through, and that's the whole thing. Covering, you almost have to cover the moves of your own team a lot of time. Make sure
they're not waiting.
Put 2 on the front. Now here's the juggernauts. Caroline Williams, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, Vicky Nealon, Lethbridge. Watch out, as this is the team that we've been waiting to see what kind of time they're going to pull off here. 12K at the 12K mark, we'll know as Lethbridge takes over at the front.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at it. They're down to 4 there as well. Alice Lethbridge taking a monster pull. She's going to dim the power grid in France right now with this effort. So, okay, this is, again, the team that came in, I would say, top ranked. Most of the pundits looked at Heino and Vicki Nealon, Cecilia Hansen. I'm trying to see, oh, they're all here. Vicki Nealon, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, Alice Lethbridge, and Caroline Williams. Is this the gold standard? We're going to know about 14K from now, Nathan, as they should be putting up a split time for us in, I would say, the next 3 minutes or so. We should see them coming through that checkpoint. That is going to tell us a lot. If you had to guess, Nathan, do you see them as our fastest team out here? I guess what data points are we working from here? No doubt about it, Evoke is a strong team, but this team on paper should be ready to go toe-to-toe with them.
Just looking at the avatars right now, I think not just on paper, but the way that they were riding there, it looks to me like they are a well-oiled machine. It's no joke. Steady cadences. We'll jump back in with them in just a moment to really take a look at that here as we look at R3R, excuse me. No pins R3R. Lou Bates, one of the top riders in the first week, but will they be able to pull off something similar here as we have Goodsky, Decker, Bates there sitting in, as this is the team that we had early on. We had as riders to watch here. We have to wait and see what kind of time they can pull off as they come through for the 12K mark. Bates looks to be sitting in third wheel right now, waiting for her turn at the front. Looks like she's almost resting up, actually, comparatively, as on the front. It looks like not even on the front, actually. 192 beats from here coming from Vanderplas, just hanging on perhaps at this point. A couple of these riders actually struggling, it looks like, early on, and they're not even on the front here, as Decker here now takes her pole, 171, 341 watts. You can see the push through at 6.2 watts per kilogram, really upping that pace. The rest of the riders, I think with that kind of a pace being set by Decker on the front, they're just holding on, actually, to make sure that they get enough riders across the lines. I think Becker and Bates are really going to be the ones leading this team today.
Yeah, they're just swapping poles right now. And those numbers from Julia Decker, the German, are insane as she's creeping up on 400 watts. And yeah, I mean, you're not looking at someone that weighs any more than 60 kilo, I would think. That's pretty incredible. And again, Lou Bates finishing second yesterday, but it does go to show you how, you know, the winner of last week's race didn't even take the start here today. There's a lot of backstory going back in with 2020 right now. This is the problem for a team that doesn't have a lot of experience, is a big gap like this. That's going to be the Olympian from Canada, Georgia Simmerling, burning a match to bring Charlotte Backus back up into the team. So Charlotte was the rider that Nathan was talking about, coming over from Sox for Watts, that brought a lot of know-how, institutional knowledge, as you would say, about how to ride a team time trial. That's going to be Kristen Kolchinsky there with Reznikov blowing it up here right now. So this team digging in 16:35, so they do have the fastest split. Wow, 10 seconds faster than Evo, 2 seconds faster than No Pins. This is one heck of a ride, but it's a three-rider time, or the rider off the third wheel here. All right, let's see if they can weld this back together quickly.
Look at this pain coming out right now. And, I mean, Shayna Paulus having to get back on turns, but it's going to slow down. No, you cannot catch and slow down like that. You have to go right on through. The speed has to be high, pulling through over the top of that Queen of the Mountain. And now at one of the worst sections to lose speed, they had Reznikov and Kolchinsky, the two pickups that they got. That was the big names from the community, the speed from the community. You can almost see the frustration on Kolchinsky's face there right now, saying, come on. Backus was trying to weld it back together, as you would say, Dave. She was kind of the glue there. She's the head, she's the mind games there with Backus there, trying to say, come on, let's pull through. Simmerling, Paulus, they have to keep on staying on wheels there. It's experience versus community, versus in real life power trying to work out here. But Reznikov and Kolchinsky, you're seeing their level when it comes to Zwift Racing right now. And 2020, if they can really try and hold on, because they're currently leading. They are currently leading, but can they hold on is going to be the question, because this team right here are only 2 seconds back. And Heino, they haven't even hit that Queen of the Mountain yet, and they look like they are flying like a freight train right now. Not even a freight train, a rocket. There they are.
Well, and the problem there for 2020 was that little bit of a riser. I think they were doing a great job until they kind of came to that crux out there. But again, let's join Heino. It's going to be really interesting to see what that split is. Got to give 2020 credit. They were on one heck of a ride. I think we tuned in right as they were sort of having a moment out there, Nathan. Georgia Simmerling, the Canadian, did a really good job of getting Charlotte Backus right back up into the team. A very challenging situation, and what a unique situation as well. The two new signees on the team have such huge engines. Trying to harness in all that power. I mean, it's like trying to bring a nuclear power plant online. You got to do that really, really carefully. As we go back in, Alice Lethbridge, she might get my woman of the match today. She has taken some huge pulls for Heino. She does not shy away from the hard work. What a ride Lethbridge is having today.
16, 18, they come in 17 seconds faster, but we're only halfway through, though, at this point for Heino. 2020 can take that time back, but currently with 17 on such a short course, going to be a huge ask to make that happen. 2020 are going to have to go into sprint mode at this point. Knowing that it's 17 seconds, they're going to have to put their heads down and just completely put it all out there for that final few K here. Hansen, as you can see, Williams there pulling on through. And as I was saying earlier, they're so smooth, this team. You can see the way that their avatars are never really leaving each other's wheels, always just this high, consistent speed. And the reality of Vicky Whitelaw, Nealon, and Hansen, that they were the original juggernauts of Heino, and they've got such huge engines. To add Lethbridge and Williams to that, which are two riders that are so experienced in the TTT, coming over from some of the bigger community teams into that team, what a pickup there for Heino. And they may just be unstoppable. I have a feeling they're going to gain time, but Kolchinsky and Reznikov, they might be taking some of that frustration out on the pedals now. These are two riders. Those are two riders we saw walk away from 2020 when they were riding unattached, actually, in the Empowerment Series as well as in the Gravel Series over the summer for the women's side of things. So perhaps we could see them try and pull some time back as they work together, as we've seen them done in races before.
Yeah, I mean, two massive signees for Nikki Cranmer, who runs that 2020 program. And that, you get out what you put in, and Nikki spends a lot of time being very aware of what's happening in this community. She identified two gems, and that makes sense. Actually, it's interesting that Reznikov and Kolchinsky are both jewelers, goldsmiths by profession, and there they are. They say it takes pressure to make a diamond. They can clearly handle the pressure. They need their teammates to step up here, and it looks like they are really, really trying. But Nathan, it's a big ask to bring back almost 20 seconds on Heino. That's the team that you're trying to bring back time on, and they are a well-drilled unit. Putting on a team time trial clinic out here today is Heino.
Lethbridge having the ride of her life out here today, it seems like. Every time we head on over to this team, she's on the front, just hammering away here. Now Vicky Nealon pulls on through here. Perhaps up front it was Lethbridge's job just to kind of throw down here. Now Kolchinsky again pressing on here, the jeweler out of New York. She's making diamonds out on course here. She presses on the pedals right now. And Reznikov sitting on. I have a feeling what's going to happen here is Reznikov, Kolchinsky, as I said earlier, they're just going to continue to trade poles. If they need a rest at any moment, they may be seeing Simmerling and the other avatars roll through. But Kolchinsky gapping again as Reznikov holds on. They cannot allow this gap to go. It needs to get shut down now as they're trying to pull back 17 seconds. They got the message in Discord. They're in the ear. The DS is most likely with them saying, you've got to put everything down now. Just hold on to the wheel in order to try and take that time back. 1K to go here for Velocity Vixen. We're coming into the final few Ks here for all the teams, Dave.
Yeah, Nathan, what a challenging situation when you're on a good day, when you are making megawatts, but your teammates are struggling. It's such a challenge for our elite athletes to crack the code on this team time trial discipline. As Nathan said, we're ready to start scoring our finishing times here as everybody is through that checkpoint. Okay, so Nathan, we start looking at the teams that have 5 together. That's generally a really good sign at this point. At this level, it's a great sign. Boy, I'm going to be interested to see. This has got to be a top 5 ride that we're witnessing right now.
Yeah, Velocity Vixen, we'll see what they can pull off here. McGregor, Haley, Sidlick there. Stephanie Sidlick's top rider here. She's going to lead things out, I believe, across the line here. at 300 watts, 181 beats per minute. Love to see how the efforts play out at the end of the race. It's always an all-in. Every last ounce of wattage counts, as it's going to be Lunasi there with Velocity Sidlik coming across the line there second, but it's the third wheel across the line, so Gil is going to get the time for Vlasivic. And here comes Heino as they roll on through. They have made up so much time, I think, already.
Wow.
Actually, as they're going to be heading into their, they're just leaving the Queen of the Mountain. This may be unstoppable. They may gain a minute on the next team, actually, with Lethbridge.
They're
again.
making a catch.
Now they're making a catch. Who are they catching? Oh my goodness. That's going to be the second seed on the day, so that would be not KRT, but maybe no pins out there. Interesting to see. Lethbridge and Gen on the front. Nealon sitting in there. Caroline Williams there, second wheel. Hansen now coming on through her pole. Look, now do you see this? Look at how smooth the takeover is at the front. Nobody loses the wheel. Solid speed. Everyone is just so strong, evenly matched as they make this catch out here. They're going to come rolling right on through.
Yeah, this is where that cross-pollination that we talk about can be a little bit of a challenge. You don't want the two teams to mix together, and this looks like it's going to be pretty clean. So because of the nature of the game of Zwift, I think that they're doing a very, very good job right here. Both teams deserve a lot of credit. That was how professionals pass each other out there. Well done by both squads. That keeps the competitive level very, very fair.
That's going to be
it's great
Team
to see.
Arrow that was being caught out there. Team Arrow being caught out there today as Heino. That's going to give them a little bit of motivation, I think, Heino. You know, knowing that you've made up a minute on the second-seeded team, they're going to feel that little bit of boost. Okay, we're having a good day. Let's keep it up. Can we get another one?
It goes against your instinct to do what Arrow did right there. That was as classy as it gets, just easing up for a moment to allow the team that's having the best ride of the day a clear path towards that. So that's going to be Heino making the pass past the Australian squad Arrow. And now we're back in with Saris the Pros Closet. We might only see 4 teams finish with 5 riders here, and this is going to be Saris the Pros Closet with recent Worlds Team Edition. Christy Tracy bringing her team across the line. So that was Saris Pros Closet, I believe. I want to make sure I have that right. Okay, good. Perfect. All right, back to Heino, Nathan.
Yeah, and Saris the Pros Closet, I actually got messages just a little while ago that there was a dropout for Christy Tracy. She got back on terms, actually, as everybody showed up. So sometimes when you have a dropout, everybody will disappear. And then she had a Wi-Fi dropout. She was racing from a parking lot, actually, from what I'm being told. So talk about a committed Zwifter. And she was able to get back on terms with, so that's a huge effort she had to put in, and they were actually sitting in the top 3 at the last time check, so it doesn't look like it had too much of an effect on their overall standings. Now we're going to jump back in. It looks like with Team Turbo, with McKay, Felstead, Bamburst, and then here up, they were having a solid ride. I think they were sitting 3rd or 4th overall at the last time check, so let's see what Turbo can pull off here. We've got, really have the stories developing here now, and it's not as cut and dry amongst the women as it seems to be amongst the men's standings right now. There's a lot more up for grabs, I feel like. Heino, yeah, dominating team, but beneath Heino, I think that you have a lot of change-up that's going to be happening here for that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Everybody's really battling it out, I think, between those spots.
It's interesting. I don't know if the grading on a curve concept is a worldwide thing or American thing, but certainly right now Heino is the top standard. And you look at 2020, Nathan, and you say, oh, they've kind of had a little trouble unraveling. Well, they're actually having a great ride out here today. It hasn't been as surgical as what you're seeing from Heino, who, this looks like, a professional military unit, right? They are just absolutely dialed right now. Going back to Canyon, which has had a rugged day out there, they're down to 3 riders. A lot of teams are unraveling out there, while Heino is having no problem at all. They are rock solid.
Looking for some of the splits out here as we do see Canyon. Are they making a catch, actually, of Evoke? Is that right? That would
I
be
think they got
amazing
passed.
if Evoke caught them. That's what I would think. is that Evoke actually made the catch on them, and then Canyon's just taking back some time. Obviously, with the sprint here, that's totally fine. They need to get their best time across the line now. There's no draft involved here at all. And this is going to be Evoke and Canyon coming across the line. We'll have to see how it ends up playing out between the two of them as Siri Hildonen now takes the group across the line. Only 3 riders on the day here, so tough day for them out there. As
just
another
enough.
Evoke rider, they're finishing up their ride out here today. As it's going to be Turbo, though, with Felstead on the back here at Madsen McKay. Team Turbo looking to see. And that's a pretty quick finish, actually, for Turbo, as they're coming in right behind Canyon, actually. This is going to be interesting to see what these times end up being. I think some teams went out really hot, Dave, and perhaps blew up a little bit.
Hino's catching their second team out here. Actually, no, excuse me. This is just Hino right now that we're looking at. I thought they actually maybe had caught... No, this is the Hino squad here. So this is our platinum standard today that we're looking at. All right, Nathan. So even Hino will have their moments out there. Nobody is going to have a perfect ride on a day like today.
You do see their surges at the front there, and they're working with them as Lethbridge had a little bit of a gap, and then we saw Hansen pulling through. This is going to be Swedish Zwift Racers. Embreen and a few of the others, they've been battling in the community, actually, up against Hino week in and week out, trying to take scratch races against them. So we'll see if SZ can get a little bit of revenge, at least pull some seconds back, actually, and what kind of time they're going to be able to pull off. Lethbridge again heading to the front there. I can't speak enough about it. Lethbridge just seems to be pulling this team around so much. This is the first splits, though, that we're seeing. Wow. Stars, the pros closet with a 34.57. Does that say 4 minutes? Is that
no, 4 seconds. 4 seconds back to vision. So this
4
is
seconds.
your top
Okay,
5
excuse
as
me.
it
Sorry,
stands
that's my
right
mistake.
now, back to your top 5 times right now. Now, remembering we still have about 10 teams still on course here. Yeah, they were all within 20 seconds, Nathan. That's really, really close.
Really close. Really close. My mistake. The numbers there for a second there looked a little bit different than usual there. So now with Light Whitelaw now pulling on through, Caroline Williams now as well, as they're going through the jigsaw, as we were calling it earlier, and they have made up so much time. They're going to maybe catch a second team, as you were saying out here today, but only separated by, as you said, 7-8 seconds, actually. So top spots. As 2020 comes through here, we're going to have to wait and see what kind of times they can pull back. You know, those were the lower seeds that have come through already. So Stars to Close Closet, we'll have to wait and see what they've pulled off out there today, as we do get the live cams again here. 174 beats per minute, currently at 6.3 watts per kilogram. That gives you an idea of what kind of watts per kilogram that they're pulling through at. Now 5.7, 5.5. Consistently, that 5 to 6 seems to be their pull through for whoever's taking a pull at the front of this team. That's huge wattage here from a women's team.
Yeah, for a rider as light as Vicky Nealon is, look at the numbers that she puts up. That is really impressive. So we're going to bounce around. I think we're going back to the No Pins R3R team right now, because they're honing in on the finish line. Again, that battle keeping your team together here. I think this is still 4 here. The camera angle just slightly deceiving. There you go. Our fourth rider is going to pop back into the draft. But that's the no woman's land that you don't want to get yourself caught in. They're at 1K to go. There's the kite. So now you can empty the tank right now, Nathan. Nothing hurts more than this kilometer, but the joy of crossing that line. It doesn't get much better than that, that's for sure. So here's last week's silver standard, Lou Bates, with the team, working hard.
We're having a really good race, actually, this week. I was not sure if they'd be able to show up and pull off in order to hold on to that top 3 to 4 spots in the points overall. But with the last times that we saw at the time check, they were still holding on for a top 3. So now Bates up and out of the saddle. She is showing what she's got. 6.5 watts per kilogram, 6.8 there for Foy. This is a huge ride here coming from the German and the British rider here. Is Bates now almost in full on sprint. 7 watts per kilogram here. 363 watts now. giving us a similar show as what we saw last week. What an effort, just holding on. All they need is 3 riders here, and that's what they're going to pull across the line. 7.3 watts per kilogram here. It looks like one of them is just going to fade and say enough is enough, as it's going to be Decker, Bates, and Vanderplas. It's going to take the time for them. That was a huge ride from No Pins R3R.
And that was a really good example of how you finish it, driving the nail home with a 20-pound sledgehammer. As looks like we're seeing, so what oftentimes will happen is you'll have a rider come out the back of their team and they'll just do their cool down riding on in. I'm going to guess that's exactly what we're looking at now.
Yeah, Cryo.
This is going to be a fast time. This is a good ride.
Yeah. By, KRT doing a great ride though here with Sharon Bird. Not having Illy Gardner though this week. We'll have to wait and see if that ends up impacting things too much. Maybe Gardner more the climber, perhaps, or maybe just need a week off. There's a reality that, real life can take over. In real life can take over a little bit here. 1K to go from Heino. Look at the time. This is amazing. They're about to catch KRT. It looks like just a little ways ahead because that's the cryo rider that KRT just caught. That's a 2-minute gap made up at least. Dave, amazing.
Nathan, it is amazing, Nathan. I don't think anyone who's followed the Zwift community over the last couple of years would be surprised at all to see Heino putting together this kind of ride. They have proven it many, many times over. As we take a look at Arrow, now back in with Heino. I mean, this is a sonic boom of a team that we're looking at. Arrow down to 1K to go. Bree Plale is a rider to watch, no doubt. I would not be too surprised, Nathan, if she ends up winning one of the scratch race days, the points race, I should say, days that we have that alternates week after week. We go from team time trial to points race next week. We'll be back with the format of week 1, but here we are. It's finale time. They're bringing it home. Heino with a command performance. Talk about just punching tickets out there today. Here comes Heino. Nathan, I can't imagine how that's not your gold standard. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised with how, and I mean, look, this gap here, they've already opened up here. Arrow now trying to pull things back a little bit. Really, I have a feeling it's going to be a race for second out there today. My question, though, is where do you think stands with 2020 versus the Heino time? We didn't get any times really coming through when it came to the we got a 17-second gap actually when it came through when the 12K. We'll have to wait and see what ends up playing out as they a little bit of a kick though. Hettinen, Wilson, and Pleo going to take down that time for Team Arrow. Solid kick to the line there for Team Arrow, and I believe we've got all of the riders across as Team Heino was the top seeded team, so they would have started last. They did catch Arrow, so Arrow did come across the line behind them here as we are into our first TTT for the Zwift Racing League out on the R.G.V course. 24 kilometers in total have been finished by both the men's and the women's side of things as we look to see if we can jump in for some results and some race highlights, Dave. Done and dusted, as you would say, Dave. And, I want to give a shout out though to the community racing that is coming. So we just finished up with the racing for the Premier League, but if you want to jump into this racing, you want to do TTTs, you want to do points racing, you can register your team. We had over 1,200 teams sign up for last week's points race. Registration is currently paused until after the racing tomorrow, just because they like to reset, make sure they got time to get everything set up for the community racing. But there's racing for APAC, Europe, Americas, tons of zones, tons of divisions from A to D category. You can go ahead and jump on into that. We'll have coverage over on Zwift Community Live for all that racing all day long tomorrow. Lots of broadcasts that are going to be happening tomorrow. But TTT looked like a hot one out there, but Heino, they didn't disappoint. We set up front. They were the ones to deal with.
Yeah, and we're going to take a look at some teams coming across the line as we get ready to head to Richmond next Monday for our Premier League. This is the big catch of Arrow, the Australian team, as Heino was just unstoppable. And fuego, as they say. And again, that was a classy ride from Arrow here today. Nathan, the problem becomes the two teams mixing together, and they did a good job of keeping them separated. As we take a look, I think that was going to be the Saris the Pros Closet team coming across the line. Well, all of our teams left it out on course today, and as they're processing these results, I'm really excited, actually, to be in Richmond, a course that's near and dear to my heart. Always challenging to race on that UCI Worlds course from 2015. I also wanted to shout out the World of Zwift. I hope you had a chance to watch the new show being produced by all of our friends at Zwift with OJ Borg. You can catch Kristen Armstrong in the coach's corner. But Nathan, there it is.
Yeah, Hino Racing Team takes it down 4.9 watts per kilogram, showing that pure power, still matters. Interesting enough to see this is really close. Is that
so? That was
we're looking at. Wow.
It is 3 minutes and 44
right?
seconds. Well, that's what this says. Certainly, so you can see
I
all
think
the
that's
other
correct.
times are
No,
clustered
I think
within.
that's right.
So, yeah, take a look at how close everything is from 344 back, right? 2 seconds to third. Only another 16 seconds back to 2020 there in fourth. Does that tell you? So, I'm assuming this data is correct. Hino is world class. That was an exceptional performance here today in our first ever team time trial in the Zwift Racing League for women. Nathan, holy cow.
I definitely want to point out that the watts per kilogram difference is not that big of a difference, though, which tells you the 5 riders staying together and the kind of practice that they've had really, really mattered. That was, command performance, absolutely, as you would say, Dave, gold standard. They showed up to rock this and walked away with it. Team Hino, watch, and you can see it in their organization. Continual speed at the front, always pulling through, never slowing down. They've got the tactic down. They've got the genre down completely. And they had the highest watts per kilogram on the day. They put it all together. Completely every puzzle piece that you need for a course like this. Vicky Nealon there leading things out. Lethbridge seemed to have a monster day when it came to the watts out there today. And almost pressing on to 5 watts per kilogram on average from a women's team out here. And here's the sprint to the line. They didn't even need to. With a 3-minute domination, they have shown that they may be unstoppable when it comes to a team competition. But we've got points racing next week out on Richmond. I think when it comes to TTT, they might be unstoppable. Some of these other teams are going to do their homework. They're going to show up most likely on Thursdays, get some practice in for the WTRL TTT. You got the community racing on Thursday that they can, show up and try and challenge as far as, do a little bit of homework. But I think that the other teams are going to be thinking, well, how do we take down the points? Because Hino are just walking away with TTTs. 3 minutes? They're going to just keep on doing this, I think, Dave.
Well, it's going to take an awful lot to upset that apple cart. That's for sure. I think we've established our pecking order here. Nathan, we came into today with a lot of unknowns, and I would say a majority of those questions have been answered. Some teams really delivered upon promise. Other teams struggled. Lack of experience was definitely an issue out there today. But wow. If that's what the Zwift Racing League is all about, we are in for a real treat. Let's take a look at that points table now. So 20 plus 20 equals 40, and you can't score more than that. That's not the gold. That's the new platinum standard. The Hino Racing Team, no pins, R3R, in its second with 36 points, 2020, moving up. So all things considered, not a bad day at all for the 2020 team. They were third. Arrow out of Australia in fourth. I Race Like a Girl into fifth. You can see these points. They're actually tied on points right now. Arrow and I Race Like a Girl, 2 more points back to Kiss Racing Team. Team Swedish Zwifters in seventh. Evoke in eighth. Cryo RDT in ninth. And then Saris the Pros Closet rounding out our top 10 on a brilliant day of racing here for the Zwift Racing League.
And now that we've seen how things played out after round 2, Hino taking it down, and they are the current leaders in the series for the Zwift Racing League. Solid ride from them. Looking forward to next week, we're going to be back out on the UCI Worlds course, as you had said, in Richmond. 2 laps, 32.4 kilometers, and 8 intermediate points opportunities actually for next week. 8 of them. That's so many points up for grabs. And having Hino dominating it the way they have with the consistency, I think Richmond as a course, Dave, really gives a lot of opportunity because of how many punches there are with that many sprint points. I think there's going to be some teams doing a lot of homework, a lot of recon rides saying, how can we take away all those opportunities from Hino, because somebody's got to put an upset out there. So that's going to be Matt Stevens and Hannah Walker next week on the comms for that. And then World of Zwift again on Friday with OJ Borg. We're going to catch up with all of that which has gone on with the week of racing, including the community league and what happened in the community league with this week. If you haven't checked that out already, it did launch over the weekend as well. You can see last week's highlights as well. Dave, TTT, it's been absolutely awesome. And we've got a lot more racing to come through all of Tuesday with the community.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nathan. What a wonderful day of racing to everybody out there. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.